I'm going to be talking to you about the impact of implementing blockchain and smart contracts with other technologies. So my name is May Winfield. I'm the Global Director of Commercial Legal and Digital Risk at Happold. I've been a construction lawyer for over 20 years, and I'm a legal and risk specialist in digital and construction technology. I'm a member of various working groups that range from modern methods of construction to digital twins, and I led the drafting of the legal guidance and the contract documents for the ISO 19650. And I'm a massive tech geek. So I'm really what happens when you combine legal knowledge with commitment to commercial process and a real interest in the technical side. For those of you who haven't heard of Happold, you would have heard of some of our projects, including the Museum of the Future in Dubai, the Jewel in Singapore's Changi Airport, and the Academy Museum of Motion Picture in LA. In the very short time available, I'm going to be talking to you about two technologies, digital twins and, of course, AI. So there's a number of sessions in the next 2 days about digital twins, but some of you may be thinking, digital what? It may not be an expression very familiar to you. I came to know about digital twins through the Centre for Digital Built Britain, which was a partnership between the University of Cambridge and the UK government. It ran for a number of years, and we produced a roadmap to achieve a national digital twin, to get from where we started, which was no digital twins, to the ideal end state, which was to have many digital twins all interconnected. We produced a digital twin toolkit, which you can still find online, which was aimed at enabling businesses to have the support of how do you implement digital twins? How do you work out the costing? I helped prepare some legal guidance. What are the 4 or 5 things you need to be aware of in your contracts, rather than just say, I want digital twins? But to give you a basic definition of digital twins, it's a digital representation of a physical asset. The data flows between the digital representation and the physical asset through sensors, through other IoT technologies. It enables the client to make informed decisions about sustainability, even travel time analysis, access to services. This is one of Happold's digital twin platforms, and it shows you how huge amounts of data can be shown in a way that a client can easily understand. We use gaming engines for more immersive interactions, again, to enable the experience to be more accessible for a client. But turning to smart contracts and blockchain, there's a slight difference and more complexity when you go from BIM models to digital twins. And why do I make that connection? Some people call digital twins the life after BIM, because it's in some ways a more complex 3D model. When you think of smart contracts and blockchain for BIM models, the process is relatively linear. You have your on-site information, you have your design, that's used to create a BIM model, used to create an update for the BIM model. The BIM model and the updates are uploaded onto the blockchain. When certain parameters are reached, you might have payment through smart contract or other actions. However, when you get to digital twins, that's when the process gets more interesting, because you have a lot more data from a lot more sources. You have your sensors, you have your IoT technologies, you have data from other stakeholders, but also different types of data. You have your dynamic data, you might have your static data, performance data. You have your user interface, like I showed you earlier. All of this needs to be set up in the blockchain in the right way. The smart contracts will have more parameters, but more complex parameters, because they're lasting for the life cycle of a building, could be 5, 10, 20 years, may need different types of things, different types of payments, different parties being involved. But you may be thinking, okay, so what? There's more dynamic data, the data's live. Why does it actually matter? Why does it make doing blockchain, why does it make doing smart contracts more difficult or more complex? Well, there's a couple of different impacts. One being there's more demands on the data. The client wants to use the data in varying ways. Is your blockchain set up to enable that? In terms of smart contracts, you have your criteria and your KPIs, which may change over time. If a client says, I want to pay you based on if sustainability objectives get achieved, is that going to be achievable? Is that going to be measurable in the same way now as 2 years from now? You would have heard the expression bad data in, bad data out. A lot of the data comes from varying sources. Some of it's automated from sensors, other IoT technologies. Can you be sure that the data is accurate? Who's going to monitor the data? What if the data is wrong and the client makes big decisions based on it? How is the data in the blockchain set up to facilitate the analysis and the simulations, which is such a key part of digital twins? Obviously, with sensors and other IoT technologies, they're actually physical things in the building, in the physical asset. What if they get moved or tampered with or broken? How are you going to protect against that? But how are you going to know if it happens? Needs may change over the course of the life cycle of an asset. The parties may change, software may become outdated. How are you going to protect against this? Because after all, nobody and nothing is perfect, not even blockchain and smart contracts. So smart contracts for technology like digital twins necessarily need to be more adaptable, more reactive, and more complex. And I would say, don't forget about the written contract. I know it's really boring to mention a written contract at a tech conference. However, smart contracts in blockchain are not smart enough to completely replace a written contract. Without one, you won't know if something goes wrong, whose fault is it? When do you get paid? What happens if something goes wrong? Whose responsibility is it to check the data? All of these things need to be in a written contract. But let's look at some of the benefits and issues of combining blockchain and smart contracts with digital twins. First, the benefits. Digital twins will have a lot of different participants. They may be in different locations, maybe in different countries. Having ready access to the data is a big benefit. There's the obvious and regular benefits of having transparency, immutability, having an auditable and verifiable system. So you have a single source of truth. People trust the data, but you can also increase the layers of security. Bearing in mind, this is data of a live asset. It could be tampered with, it's quite dangerous if the wrong people get access to it. But all of this enables parties to improve quality and increase innovation in dealing with the asset. But there are challenges. So expectation versus coding. Parties may say, I want a smart contract to do this. The coding may not precisely reflect that. What do you do if it doesn't? The smart contracts may need to make automated judgments. Is it set up to do so? I've mentioned KPIs and criteria. How are you going to measure those? How are they going to be fair? Otherwise, you're going to have arguments and disputes when someone says, yeah, the smart contract didn't measure me fairly. Parties' obligations and rights may vary, they may be deleted. How is that going to be reflected in the way your smart contracts are set up, how your blockchain is set up? There's still a question mark as to the legal standing and enforceability of smart contracts. It's different from country to country. And this is where written contract comes in. You want to make sure it's clear what law applies. There's no point having one or two people in a party understanding how the blockchain works, how the smart contract works, how the digital twins work. You need enough people to understand the system. Otherwise, it's going to get confusing. You're going to have misunderstandings. The accuracy of the data input and output is crucial because, again, clients are making really big decisions based on this data. A lot of countries, like across the EU, the UK, and other places, have very strict regulations about handling personal data. You may not want to put it on your blockchain because you won't be able to deal with it in the way required. But also, how can you set up your blockchain and your smart contracts to support the development and maintenance of a digital twin, which in some ways is a live being as it flexes and grows with the asset? There's also always a risk that a client will just say, it's not actually what I wanted. People are very good at explaining what they are going to be doing, what they are going to be paid for. Often people forget to say, this is not included, this is extra. So the client misunderstands. You didn't mention it, so why is it not included? Sit down and have that discussion. Blockchain, smart contracts, digital twins, probably going to be quite new to the client, probably quite new to some of your team members. Have those discussions ongoing over time. Turning to AI, you would have all heard of AI, ChatGPT, and all the rest. Is it though just a buzzword? You would have heard how AI is supposed to be coming and taking our jobs. You might have heard about how AI is going to come and take over the world, maybe mentions of the Terminator movie. Suffice to say, it's probably none of those things are going to happen quite yet. The technology isn't there. But there are benefits to using AI with smart contracts and blockchain. Couple of them. It can automate the creation of smart contracts, data requests. It can recognize when things get completed, when there are errors such as coding errors, fraud, and hacking, so you're not relying on manual checking. It can monitor compliance, but also flagging areas of non-compliance, so you have a more efficient process. You know when people aren't doing the thing they're supposed to be doing. It can also speed up transactions by predicting and prioritizing processes, so you have faster confirmation and a more seamless user experience. AI is not going to fix all your problems, but it will make things faster and better. Couple of benefits. It makes things more adaptive and responsive, but it can identify trends and risk patterns, but also performance issues and anomalies. So you can fix things before it gets too bad. You can resolve things for the next time. But it can also forecast events and scenarios so you don't have the problem in the first place. All of this provides insight for risk-based decisions. And as a result, you get complex, more dynamic smart contracts, which also helps fix some of the problems with dealing with digital twins. So I like checklists. It helps me not forget things. Here's a checklist of when you implement smart contracts, digital and blockchain with other technologies, not just digital twins and AI. One being risk allocation. Take a blank document, take a blank piece of paper, write down what are the possible things that could go wrong? Have they been allocated? Have they been mitigated or resolved by insurance or other means? How is the data being uploaded? Is it going to be checked, avoiding the bad data in, bad data out problem? Avoid the temptation to just upload as much data as possible. Work out what are the uses and purposes of the data so the blockchain can be structured accordingly. I mentioned having measurable KPIs criteria, so it's fair, it's measurable, it's understandable how the smart contract's working. With things like digital twins and other technology, software choice is going to be very important. If the software gets updated, are you still going to be able to access the data? Your viability of your choice of your software and hardware is going to be very crucial. Security and access, lots of people accessing very important data. What happens if a party gets terminated? Do you have a process to make sure their access immediately gets terminated as well? Confidentiality, some of the information, not everyone can view it. Is it set up to avoid certain access? Personal data, are you complying with the regulations? In terms of confidentiality, I would mention that if you're using AI, generative AI models which are on your browser, if you put things onto ChatGPT, which is on your browser, that is effectively throwing it into a public forum. You can't delete it, you can't remove it. It's there forever, and someone asking the right question can extract that data. So AI is a great thing, but just work out how you want to use it best. And I'll mention it again, have a written contract, because things like that need to be set out for clarity. And after all, even Nick Szabo said, smart contracts are inspired by contracts. They're not the same thing. And we would have all heard the expression, is it smart or even a contract? Thank you very much.